I wanted to share some information about soulmates and past lives, past life karma, why we choose the partners that we do in this lifetime, based on a case study that I really would love to share because it's been so powerful to work with that woman. So she came to me because she really wanted to understand the relationship she has with her husband and the relationships in general. She wanted to see if there is any karma to heal or to solve, or the lessons behind the karma, what was happening. And so she signed up for my healing package called Heal Your Past, which includes past life regression. But that is just one of the things we dive into, and that's also the only thing I will be talking about right now. So this case is so beautiful because it really shows that sometimes when we have soulmates, or one soulmate in particular, that we reincarnate with this person again and again. And usually what happens is that we reincarnate in different constellations, or sometimes it can be a lover in one life, in the next life it might be our son or our daughter, it might be a teacher in one life or a student in another. So it's really different. However, with this client, she dove into 3 different past lives, and her soulmate was always her husband. And she was always the wife. And the very first past life she went into, so I guided her in a guided visualization, and she right away saw herself in the 14th century in Europe somewhere. And she saw herself as a single woman, 28 years old, which back then, of course, was unheard of because everybody was married off quite young. However, she saw herself as an orphan. Her parents were out of the picture. She had been alone for a very long time, and also she had no siblings. But she was very much part of the community of the little town. She had lots of friends who became her family, and she was able to make enough money to get by. However, her friends, of course, were looking out for her, and they were introducing different men to her. And eventually she met this one guy who she really enjoyed spending time with. She described him as handsome, he was tall, he was funny. And so when I asked her, look into his eyes and see if they seem familiar somehow. And she did that and immediately said, yes, I believe this is my husband in this life as well. So we explored the life between them two. And she said they were together forever, like for the rest of their lives. However, she was unable to become pregnant. And she wasn't sure if it was because of infertility on her side or because of him. And it didn't matter. The matter was that she didn't get pregnant. And while she was quite sad about it because she really wished to birth a child, he was okay. He loved her so much that he did not leave her and find another woman to have kids with. He accepted the situation as it was, and they stayed together. And so once she died, I directed her to be picked up by her spirit guide, and she saw how she got picked up and went to the higher dimension and to review this life. And the lesson here was to really keep going and not give up, even though it was filled with suffering, be it because she eventually was an orphan, lost her family, her parents, couldn't have kids. There were lots of elements that were quite difficult to handle, yet she mastered everything and yes, had a good life despite all these struggles. And then we went to the second past life, and there she saw herself in Germany. And she was rich this time, so she saw herself in very rich clothes and shoes, living in a very big mansion. And her father was a sort of lord. He was responsible for the town or the region. And she saw herself playing the piano, studying the piano, riding with horses, all of that. At the time of seeing this past life, she saw herself as a 16-year-old. And the next thing was that she saw herself nearly getting married, and the parents had chosen a partner who she was not in love with at all. And she said she even felt disgusted about this person, so she really had a strong reaction when she saw that. And I asked, what happened? Did you have to marry this guy? And she said, no, I actually ran away at the wedding. So she ran away. And next thing she tells me, she's somewhere in a village with another man in a house. And I asked, so who is this man? And she said she's in love with this man. So she had a boyfriend that the parents did not approve of because he was not rich or not in any way, the kind of son-in-law they had in mind for their daughter. And so those two ran away to some mountain where they lived on the mountain, very far away from the parents' house, and nobody ever found them again. And she had a daughter with this man. And the daughter, though, had some very serious illness. She said it was something with the bones. She was very frail, very sick. And in fact, the daughter died when she was 13 years old. And so she could barely cope with the grief and the horror of all of it, that she just stopped communicating and sort of drove away the husband, who was also grieving, of course, but who felt he had lost the daughter and the wife, because the wife, of course, just was not the same anymore. And so she saw how he left his house for longer periods of time without coming back, and she didn't know where he was and what he was up to, but she felt very, very lonely. And it was a hard, very hard life for her as well. And again, once I brought her to the higher dimension after she died, she said the lesson again was to learn how to not give up, how to continue, even though it's so hard sometimes, the life. And also the lesson out of this life, what she took for herself, was to not shut out somebody communication-wise, but to let them in and to learn how to grieve together, how to communicate even in periods that are so tough. And when I had asked her, do you recognize the daughter when you look into her eyes? Do you know who this is? She said, no, but I have a feeling she will become my daughter in this life again. So this is a younger woman. She's only 26 years old. And of course, she has all the time to still have kids in this life. But when she reunited with her daughter as a soul, once she had died in that past life, she said she felt at peace. And it was such a healing, beautiful energy to be again united with that daughter as a soul, knowing that, she's not lost. She's very much still there as a soul, and she will be coming back. And so the husband in that life, the one she ran away with, again, was the husband she has in this life as well. And so she did incredibly well with these two past lives. And the third one was one where she was in a boat and she was traveling from Europe, and she wanted to reach the new world, as they called it, America. So very, very old past life. And it was just a tiny boat, and they never made it to the new world. They stopped by an island before, so she assumed, or I assumed as well, it was somewhere in the Caribbean. And she stayed there with her husband and the baby that she took with her. And again, the husband in that life was the husband in this life. And they had a very good life over there on that island. They made friends with the locals. They taught each other different things until there was this big hurricane that just destroyed everything. And she died in so much pain. And again, she was too young, but she died. And even though the family was happy, she was happy with her husband, with the child, they just all died far too young. And so that was the third past life. And the overarching theme here was that she had so many different lives with her husband in this life. And it was always around either not having children or having children but losing them too quickly, or all of them just dying too quickly and not really getting to experience what a life as a happy family is long term. And so she had to heal all of these memories, the traumas and the suffering that she went through, to know that she chose her husband and he chose her in this lifetime to finally have a life where everything is just beautiful, where she can have a child and is not suffering from infertility. and where they all get to live a long and beautiful life. And she related then to me that her husband, before meeting her, absolutely never wanted to have children. He was so adamant about it. However, as soon as he met her, he was just sure, with this woman, it's different. With her, I want to have kids with her. And that's because his soul remembered that they were soulmates from before, not in these words, of course, because I don't know if he's into past lives and reincarnation, but his soul knew. Our souls always know when we meet somebody who's important to us. And so he knew that she would be the one for him. And so, it was just a beautiful story of how soulmates reincarnate again and again to learn different lessons, to go through important lessons together, and to eventually come back into a life where they can heal all that trauma and leave it behind and really have a beautiful life without all the pain and the suffering. And that's what she's about to experience in this lifetime. So it was, beautiful to see, to witness. And I just wanted to share, because for anyone out there who's wondering whether their husbands or wives are their soulmates and whether they have met before, then the message is definitely, if you have a soulmate and you feel a soulmate energy, you definitely met before. Your soul would know, and there will be numerous past lives, not always as husband and wife or as romantic partners. As I said, it can be very different constellations, but still the love would be very strong. And all of you would have had different lessons to learn, to overcome. And so the reason why you came back together in this life most likely is to heal from whatever past life karma, past life trauma there is. So you can have a very different experience in this lifetime. And some of you might need some help with it to really release that trauma, to heal, to send healing back in time for everyone involved, so that in this life you do not repeat any of those lessons or any of those themes, and can take very different decisions. Like this woman, for example, she explicitly was told to not shut out the husband, to always communicate with him, even when there is things happening and we grieve or, we go through difficult times, to not shut out the people who love us, but to invite them in and to grieve together and to keep the communication channels open. So for her, just knowing this now, she will be so much more conscious and aware of it. And yes, so there's always an empowering message for anyone who goes into these kind of past lives. And voila, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this little case studies.